Hello and welcome to American Friction, the youngest yet the most wise US politics podcast anywhere in the world. I'm a young man, Jacob Jarvis.
And I'm an even younger but look a lot older man, Chris Jones. The most likely candidate to become mayor of New York doesn't even qualify to run for president for another 2 years. Zoran Mamdani is 33 and could very soon hold one of the most important mayoral positions in the US.
That aside, the average age of Congress right now is the third oldest since 1789, a long time ago. It's a criticism that has been voiced by many voters that those representing them are simply too old. So what will it take to get more young people into political leadership positions, and what would be the benefit of that? Amanda Litman is co-founder and president of Run for Something, a political action committee that helps young people get into politics, and the author of When We're in Charge, the next generation's guide to leadership. Amanda, thank you very much for joining us.
Anytime.
It's great to talk to you, Amanda. Let's start off with Mamdani and the news around that, because as it stands, pretty much nailed on to become the next mayor of New York. What do you think it is that is resonating with people? What is it about him that has put him into this position?
I think it's a couple things. One, his policy positions are so clearly driven by a set of values. I'm a New York City resident. I'm a New York City voter. He talked about the things that directly affect our quality of life. Cost of housing, cost of childcare, how you get around the city. This place is really expensive.
Yeah.
It's magical. I love being a New Yorker. And I think actually the thing about Zoran that makes him unique even among this field of candidates, among many of our past mayors, is he also loves New York City. Like, he genuinely loves this place. And that came through in all of his campaigns. And he wants to make it better, not change it. He wants to take the things that make it special and improve upon them. As opposed to, say, Eric Adams or even Andrew Cuomo, who talk about how this city is like a crime nest rundown, like hellscape. It's not. And anyone who lives here knows that it's not. That's the New York City you see on TV, not in reality. So I think one is his policies are really tangible. Two, the dude is genuinely like a positive, authentic communicator. You watch his videos, you see him on social, you meet him on the street, and he is smiling, he is happy, he is ebullient, he is also very good on camera. And all of those things translate in a way that you could not scroll TikTok or Instagram without seeing him on your newsfeed, which made it feel omnipresent. The third thing that he did was he ran a really strong campaign. My door got knocked every 3 days for a month. We had canvassers constantly. He had, I think, close to 50,000 volunteers, something like a huge percentage. I forget the exact percentage, but something like 1 in 3 or 1 in 4 voters in New York City who ended up showing up in the primary were contacted by the campaign in some way. That's monumental and basically unprecedented in a New York City mayoral campaign.
You mentioned social media there, and this is obviously a big platform for him, especially the likes of Instagram and TikTok. Do you think there's an element there of his success with these platforms has essentially allowed him to reach parts of the electorate that, say, Andrew Cuomo just doesn't connect with?
I think that's a huge part of it. And I think the reason that he was good on social is because it was driven by the values that he has. It's really hard to be an authentic communicator when you don't really have a sense of self, when your only sense of self is fuck those guys, or I'm not them, I'm not them. Zoran clearly has a values system. He has things he believes, he holds true to them, and that allowed him to be a communicator in all kinds of different sort of unscripted, off the cuff, sometimes silly, sometimes serious places. His social media did not treat people like idiots. It was, it was viral, but it wasn't memey in the same way. It wasn't trying to capture the cringe. It was, in fact, very earnest in many circumstances. I think that made it really compelling. He also just could be present on media platforms that Cuomo or any of the other candidates just either couldn't or wouldn't. And that is really powerful, too. So he was able to break through to people who otherwise are not engaged in the political process.
On wider lessons from that, do you think that it's going to start to be a real asset for younger candidates that they're actually natives to social media? I regularly look back to the sort of the Harris campaign and the Brat Summer moment and just wince, because I think it felt, in hindsight, at the time I didn't like it, but in hindsight, just like complete bullshit.
Yeah.
And that's because obviously it was complete bullshit. Whereas now people like Mamdani can capture the zeitgeist without being quite so desperate to capture the zeitgeist, I guess.
He did a video earlier this week, maybe. What is time? But he did a video earlier this week where he notes like he was scrolling TikTok and he saw something on his For You page about him always saying ultimately. He's like, and my staff was just telling me, you got to stop saying ultimately. And there was like a clip series. And that really hammered home the thing, which is that this is a guy who is both a consumer and a producer. He understands the media because he uses it. You would be shocked, or maybe actually you probably would be shocked, but it would stun you how many elected officials do not consume social media, still get their clips emailed to them or printed out and handed to them in the morning, do not run their own Instagram accounts, have no idea what a For You page is. I love asking older elected officials and even operatives this too. Tell me what side of TikTok you're on. Tell me what reels you're getting. Tell me what subreddits you're in. What discords are you in? There actually isn't a right answer there necessarily, so much as that you need to understand the question and have a answer. Because if you're not a consumer of these mediums, you don't understand how people are getting information anymore. It absolutely matters that you can be present in a way that is comfortable to who you are. That doesn't mean you need to be everywhere. That not every person is the right fit for the TikTok, For You page, walking down the street viral videos or whatever you might be. But if you aren't the right fit for some of these platforms, one of these platforms, any of these platforms, you're not going to be able to break through.
Yeah. Obviously, beyond social media, policy clearly is a more important thing in politics, I suppose. Do you think we're starting to see a change in maybe a change in the perception of younger candidates, in that they're bringing more policy than maybe older people are, and they're more focused on what their policy platforms are because it's based in values. I see people like we spoke to Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, who has faced a lot of criticism just for people treat her like she's just a TikTok person, which she's not. She's clearly very smart when you get speaking with her. Same sort of things get leveled at AOC, same sort of things were getting leveled at Mamdani. But actually, is the sort of the woken worthiness, I suppose, of younger people in that actually, could be a byword for them giving a shit about stuff and paying attention to stuff, actually shows that their policy platforms could be more padded out than even their older rivals.
I think that's absolutely right. The style is possible because of the substance. They are able to be good at social because they have a lot to say. They have interesting things to say. They have nuanced things to say. People dismiss social media as simplistic or that it erases complexity. And it can, but also it can give depth. It can give meaning. It can create an opportunity for narrative storytelling. That's really powerful. And I think the candidates and electeds that you see use it well are ones who have some meat on the bones, so to speak.
Chris, another silly question for you this week. But what is your favourite type of shark?
Jaws, the one from Jaws.
Just that one. Yeah, that's a scary pick. But it does chime with what I know to be one of your favourite films, which is Point Break, because you like surfing. You used to put lemon in your hair to try and get it blonde and a little bit surfy.
So
when you're that is the acid. But with all of that in mind, surfing, sharks and surfing. Have you heard of Surf Shark?
Is it a bit like Surf's Up, but with sharks, not penguins?
No.
Oh.
It's not a film.
Okay.
It's a cybersecurity service.
No way.
So you've heard of VAR, haven't you?
Unfortunately, I have, yes.
But do you know what a VPN is?
Go on, Jarv. Prove to me how much smarter you are than me, like you always do. Tell me what it is.
I'm smarter than all fans of Surf's Up. So VPNs they're virtual private networks, which allow you to virtually, a lot of virtual stuff happening here, travel the world, watching content from other countries as if you were there, but you're not. Okay. Like a little holiday for your internet connection.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it?
And according to Surfshark, using a VPN is like wearing pants. All the important stuff stays private and secure when you step your foot outside. Just the one foot.
Just the one.
Just the 1 foot. And that's what I call my bits, actually, my important stuff
nice.
As well. So we have to search for some weird stuff.
We do.
Important stuff, though. And access content, not that sort of important stuff.
No.
And access content in America when we're researching the podcast. And a VPN can come in very handy for that.
That's right.
As well as helping us to access content, it makes sure that your browsing is hidden from all sorts of snoopers. dastardly snoopers.
Oh,
yeah,
those
we don't like
snoopers.
them. And if you're traveling and using public Wi-Fi, it keeps your browsing safe and secure. So with all of that in mind, Chris, what should the listeners do?
Well, they should take control of their online safety.
They really
of course. And they can
Idiots.
do that. Yeah, exactly.
Taking
And they can do
control.
that by trying Surfshark today and enjoy their 30-day money-back guarantee.
I can't ask Vera.
So go to surfshark.com/Amfric or use the code Amfric at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is supporting American Friction, so if you need a VPN, choose the one that helps keep American Friction going.
With how old Congress is, it sometimes feels like we've got quite a long way to go to bring that average age down. But do you think we're potentially starting to see a tipping point where people like, going back to New York, looking at Cuomo, and he's obviously got his own personal baggage and not a great dude based on that, let's say. But I think maybe some voters, do you think they're not even paying attention to the specifics? It's more just he represents the past. And people are getting sick of that. Even older voters are getting sick of that. And you see even right-wing older voters, they seem to, they want younger people. Even on the GOP side, we're seeing that they're bringing through younger talent because people are maybe just a bit sick of what has been.
I think there's an overarching moment in American politics, and I think global politics more broadly, though you would know better than me, that the people who have gotten us to this point will not be the ones to get us to the next one. Like they don't have the skills, they don't have the stomach. They built this mess, they can't clean it up. You can't ask the person who set the fire to put it out. And in particular, in the American context especially, like we have been stuck with the same politicians for decades. Joe Biden, for example, first ran for office when he was 29 years old, when he took a seat in the United States Senate, and earlier than that to win a seat on like the local county council. That is literally a full generation of people who have never known politics without Joe Biden in it.
Yeah, that's like 2 times longer than I've been alive. He's been involved in politics.
Yeah, like it's insane.
Yeah.
It is not surprising to me that when he was the sort of standard bearer of our party, people were like, him? We're going to get change from him? It's just it's not a believable argument. In the same way that you're like, we're not going to get change when the majority, or at this point, minority leader in the Senate is a guy who like still prides himself on having a flip phone. That's like the shtick with Chuck Schumer is that he doesn't have a smartphone. And it was funny for a while when I was like, dude, it's 2025. Get an iPhone. Or Android even. Get an Android. You don't have to be an iPhone.
Get something.
But people are going to dumb phones now. That's becoming quite a young person thing to do, to sort of get offline a little bit. Yeah.
You're going to get one.
I've seen a lot of it. I've considered.
It's very
to keep me
tempting.
young. Yeah.
I know.
Just, that, open water swimming. I'm doing all the cliches. That's the way.
Jumping out of planes. Just
midlife
crisis comes earlier and earlier.
Yeah. It's hitting hard at the moment. I mean, with that, and obviously the makeup there is already, I suppose the question is that when young people do get power, what is the advice then? Because there's one thing, I mean, I suppose there's a difference between having your place to have power. Technically, if you become a member of Congress, you have power. But we see that there are some members of Congress who wield far more power than others. And that doesn't necessarily depend on hierarchy. It depends on the coalitions they make and the influence they can have. So how are the younger people going to deal with coming into this, this space where everyone is 40, 50 years older than them, and convincing them to take them seriously? And I don't know, do you think are there any good allies in there? Because I don't want us to be ageist here. There's some older politicians who are maybe quite good allies for younger people they should be looking for.
Yeah, I think it depends on the context they're coming in as. Like, are we in the minority or majority? How many young people? What does it look like? What are the priorities? But what I do think we've seen, Run for Something, the organization I run, has helped elect more than 1,500 millennials and Gen Z to local offices all across the country. And we have seen that when our folks take office, when they're the only, it's very hard. It's both like personally very hard and politically very hard. When they become a caucus of 2 or 3 or a majority, all of a sudden the dynamics change.
Yeah.
There is real power in showing up and saying, this structure wasn't built for people like me, I am not going to let that stop me from changing both the structure and how it affects people's lives.
Yeah.
We have seen, in Cambridge, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston, a young guy, Burhan Azim, ran for city council, won, became one of the only renters on the city council there. And over the last couple of years, pushed forward what was ultimately the most ambitious rezoning of the city, possibly across the country and for sure in decades, in a way that will 10x the housing supply there over the next 20 years. That will be transformative for renters, young people, old people, for everyone across both that particular city, but also have downstream effects in the greater Boston area. It is so hard to make change like that if you do not personally experience the problems that the housing shortage is causing.
Yeah.
Like, it took electing someone who, while he was in office, was running into issues with his landlord to tackle the problem. That's powerful.
With that, and on the tipping point, I suppose, of more young people being brought through, we mentioned there, jokingly, that the midlife crisis comes sooner. But I suppose also it seems like people seem to associate with being young for longer at the same time, or people are trapped in kind of having to do things which are associated with being young for longer, like renting or having precarious jobs or not earning a good enough salary to really have a family. Do you think that's also going to make this shift happen? Because we're seeing people into older generations, the nurse sort of elder millennials or people just above us, are still trapped in the situation that people in their 20s are feeling like they're in as well. Is that going to affect things?
Yeah, I think the sort of delayed adulthood has downstream effects on our politics. The fact that, people are getting married a little bit later, starting families a little bit later, buying homes a little bit later. All of that means that we have to tackle these sort of big structural issues, things like childcare, cost of housing, insurance coverage for fertility, which is I was listening to something about that this morning, of like the fact that people are starting families later means the science of how you start a family has to catch up here, and insurance coverage in the United States does not cover that in most cases. It becomes prohibitively expensive.
Yeah.
All of that, like, our policy has to catch up to. Even things like people having to work longer into their lives. Thinking about the other end of the spectrum, retirement, Medicare, all of that. We just haven't adjusted our systems to meet the lived experience of most people, in part because the people in charge of those systems aren't living it that way.
Yeah.
They're older. I think about trying to explain to my grandma how I find an apartment these days. Like, how do you go on the website and you find the different listings? Then you have to show up at right when the door opens and have all your paperwork ready. And you're often elbowing out other people to be first in line. And she's like, that is gibberish to me. I don't understand the words you are saying. That is a process that is incomprehensible. She's like, I bought my house in the 70s and that was that.
Yeah.
They don't get it. And it's not a personal failing. They just don't get it.
So you kind of touched on it a minute ago when you said about the amount of people that you've helped run for something get into political positions. But I'm interested in what you've seen recently in terms of Donald Trump has, well, I think he's historically the oldest president on Inauguration Day ever. Has that spurred more young people on to come to organizations like yours and say, I want to have a hand in changing things?
Since Trump won, I'm not sure it's just his age. I think it's also his beliefs and the sort of shock to the system it has been. But since Trump won, remember something has had more than 60,000 people raise their hands to say they want to run for office. We've had more people sign up since the November election than we did in the entire first 3 years of Trump's first term. It has been unprecedented. Even more exciting than that, 10,000 of those people signed up in the 2 weeks after Mamdani won back in New York.
Wow.
So, fear, just as expiring as hope. It is telling to me that we are about to experience, I think in 2026, a sea change in leadership across the Democratic Party in a way that is good. Even if those candidates, not all of them are going to win, especially the ones challenging, like congressional folks, incumbents, it's hard. It's all very, very hard to run for office, especially for the first time. But the fact that they are running and pushing the conversation and campaigning a different way is going to change the feeling that people have about the Democratic Party. And it's going to quite literally change the elected officials that make up the Democratic Party on both sides of the equation. That is a good thing because we desperately need to change it.
Amanda, we've touched on this slightly before, and we were talking about Kat Abu-Ghazaleh. I kind of want to ask you about prejudices, I guess, older voters have towards younger candidates who want to get into politics. So, for example, Kat Abu-Ghazaleh had an attack from Laura Loomer, who basically said that she looked like a hooker, and she doesn't. I mean, that's fair to say. She absolutely doesn't. She just looks like... It
shouldn't matter what she looks like.
No, exactly. But she just looks like a normal young person. So I guess what I'm asking is, do we see prejudices or attacks from older voters, older politicians on younger candidates, younger people, in terms of what they should look like and what they expect them to look like as a politician?
It's definitely something that candidates will express as a little anxiety about, like, what do I look like? Do I look like a politician? But I think people like Kat running, and I love Kat. I think she's such a great example of this. It changes even subconsciously. Like, what a politician looks like is constantly changing.
Yeah.
The expectation that I think people have, and this is one that I think is a good thing, is that if you are a younger candidate especially, like, you need to have ties to community. You need to have a vision for what you're going to do. You need to be ready to communicate. You're not going to be able to just walk in and say, I want this, give it to me. You have to earn it. I think that's good for candidates of any age. And I think younger candidates in particular have both, like, the energy and often the time to be able to put in the work to communicate with folks.
My slight concern for young people running in politics is that I don't know how they necessarily inoculate themselves from the risk of losing. And I just want to know your thoughts on that in terms of, is there anything systemically that can happen there? Is there any change that can be done? Is there a way to look at it? Because to me, it just, I find it, like, very brave when I see people downing tools and downing everything to stake themselves in a run that they are potentially likely to lose. But as you were saying there as well, people just running and losing, even then that will inspire another generation. How do we encourage people to sort of take on that risk and protect them from, maybe some of the fallout of that? Or can we not? Is that basically, it's almost like a form of protest that unfortunately there are some people who are going to have to go first, and things might not go that well for them until it does go well?
Most first-time candidates lose. That's the thing that I remind people. It's like, most first-time candidates lose. That doesn't mean that it's not worth doing. And in fact, most candidates who lose will tell us it was worth it even though they lost. Like, it is not a discouragement from doing it again. Running for office is really hard. The way that you become a politician, the way that you become an elected official, in the same way it's like art or music. You become one by doing it and by trying and messing up and failing and doing it again. By practice. You can't, like, get inoculated against the fear of losing. You just got to do it and know you might lose. You'll probably lose, and it's worth it anyway.
Yeah.
That's why you can't do it. Or rather, that's why you, like, have to do it for the right reasons. You can't do it because, like, you want power or glamour or money. There's certainly no money. You got to do it because you want to solve problems in your community, because you feel like you have no choice but to.
Yeah.
Remember, something does candidate recruitment, but I often have to explain to people, like, my job is never to convince someone to run for office. My job is to ask and then say, if you say yes, we will help you. Like, you will not be alone. I want to open the door for people, and then I want to hold their hand as they walk through it and then be with them every step of the way. But if I have to convince you to do this, you're not going to be a good candidate, because it is not fun enough to do it by, like, my convincing alone.
I suppose my thought being, though, is how many of those first-time losers go on to be able to have another shot, and how do we is there a way to make that possible? Because to me, it's just, if I were to down tools, quit my job, run for public office right now, if I didn't win, I just don't know if I wouldn't be in a financial position to do that again. It would be, okay, time to go get a job and not do that. Is that to do with the parties, how they can support the candidates? Is there, what can happen there?
Well, about 2/3 of the people that Run for Something works with who lose tell us they want to run again. So that's already sort of baked in. I would say for most elected offices, especially local ones, you don't quit your job to run, because you also don't quit your job to serve. I mean, it becomes your full-time job outside of your full-time job, but it's not like running for Congress. Running for Congress needs to be your full-time job.
Sure.
city council, school board, library board does not. And the way that our parties are structured, like they don't have the capacity to support people between campaigns or even during campaigns. They barely have the capacity to support themselves. So it's about balance. Part of this is the structures of these institutions, as I keep coming back to, are not meant for normal people. It's one of the things we have to change. Like they're not meant for non-independently wealthy people or people who don't have rich partners, rich family members, that kind of thing. It is really hard. And I try not to bullshit people on that. Like, they're like, how can normal people do this? I'm like, they can't. That's why most people don't.
Yeah.
The answer is you have to find a way. And then once you get in the system, change it to open the door to more people like you.
Yeah, I guess that's the hope, isn't it? Is that more and more people from ordinary backgrounds do it and then say, all right, this is fucked up. Let's help more ordinary people from normal backgrounds do this. On some of the people that are doing stuff at the moment, we've mentioned Kat, obviously Mamdani has had massive focus. Who are you looking out for in the future at the moment? Who's sort of been catching your eye within the political arena, as it were?
I'm really excited about Mallory McMorrow, who's running for Senate in Michigan. She's amazing. I love Zach Walz in Iowa, who's also running for Senate against a Republican incumbent. Anna Eskamani, who's a state rep down in Florida, is running for mayor of Orlando. She's just such a firecracker. James Tallarico in Texas, who's a state rep there, who is thinking about a run for higher office himself and is a real superstar. Chi Osei, who's a New York City council member, who was part of sort of the crew that helped elect Zoran during the primary. Amazing, so fun. And then in Congress, I love Maxwell Frost. He was the first Gen Z member of Congress. And he is just like such a, when you see someone, you're like, oh, he's got the juice.
Yeah.
Maxwell's got the juice.
Nice.
And I mean that like in the best possible way.
This is a final question here, which normally Chris asks. It's his cheeky final question, but I've stole it this week, actually. We ask our guests this quite frequently. Should we be looking out for an Amanda Litman for Congress campaign in the future? Is it something you'd want to do yourself?
No, I think you should run for office because there's a problem you want to solve in an office that gives you power to solve it. The problem I want to solve is changing the Democratic Party and building sustainable leadership. And I can't do that in Congress or in any other elected office. I'm really lucky the work I get to do, both, with the organization, with the book I wrote, all of that is about answering the question, what if things didn't suck?
Yeah.
What if leadership didn't suck? What if work didn't suck? What if our bosses didn't suck? And I have such an opportunity that I've made for myself, but also that I'm very lucky to have to get to do that day in, day out now. So no, thank you.
No, fair enough. Amanda, thank you for the work you do. And thanks so much for your time joining us on American Friction.
Anytime. Thanks, guys.
And as ever, thanks to you listeners, we couldn't continue making this podcast without you, and there'd be no point because no one would be listening to it.
No one would be listening.
If you want to keep us going forever and stay forever young, there's an easy solution. Back us on Patreon.
Yes, please.
It's £3 a month. Will get you access to our episodes ad-free and access to some exclusive merchandise. And for £5 a month, you'll have access to our Patreon chat community where you can ask us and each other questions about the madness of US politics. If you can't back us financially, we get that, but there is a way you can help us, and that is to rate and review us wherever you're listening to this episode, and make sure you subscribe. I'm Jacob Jarvis, and you've been listening to American Friction.
See ya.